All right, what's up, guys? Episode 26, back at it. Last episode, we were talking about the carnivore diet. We are still on that. Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit more today, but we will answer some questions from the Kettlebell Crew Instagram channel. And I appreciate the questions. I appreciate you guys listening. Let's just get right into it. So, let's go into one of the first questions. Good question. Or this is an exclamation, it seems. So, building for longevity in the long game, exclamation point. So we'll take that as a question. So how do we build for longevity in the long game? So I think key is mobility, guys. So in terms of longevity, I think a lot of people think of your insides, your organs, your nutrition, things like that. But think also of like how limber you can stay. You know, like you always hear about those people that are over 100 and maybe they're still drinking soda and eating cookies and ice cream and stuff like that, but they live till they're over 100. Not like they're binging on those things, but you get it. You know, they're not eating like a super strict diet. We hear that all the time. But I bet they're moving, they're walking, they're, stuff like that. And it doesn't have to be crazy movement. It's just like even just walking, just being able to walk for a longer time. So I think maintaining your ability to move is crucial. So thus focusing on your mobility, how mobile you are, and keeping that intact by, prioritizing mobility training. That's why I train with kettlebells, guys. So training the way I do, because you can kind of unify all those things instead of taking so much time to focus on just weightlifting, just cardio, just mobility. You can even craft a kettlebell circuit that can get all those things, in a circuit style fashion. You do it for 30 minutes and you're torched in all those aspects of hitting your mobility, getting your cardio in, getting your weight or your resistance training in. So, but even aside from that, I still stretch, like it's not like kettlebells just solve the problem of stretching, unfortunately. Like I still think you do need to stretch. I think one of the most important things, guys, actually, I'm thinking as I talk, by the way, I hope you guys know that none of this is scripted, so sorry. But one of the most important things that you can do is spend time on the floor. Don't try not to sit down unless you really have to, like for work. Like if you're watching TV or something like that, try not to sit in a seated position where like your legs are at 90 degrees and you're sitting there watching. Like that's the worst thing that you can do for your hips and spine, thus your mobility and thus your longevity for anything, training, living. So spend time on the floor, because try this. Try doing it this evening, or whenever you plan to watch TV next or read a book or whatever. Spend time doing it on the floor and see how long you last. See how long until your back starts to tighten up, or you have to shift positions, or how hard it is for you to sit, with your legs crisscrossed like that. All these things, guys, they're very simple. You don't have to be a gymnast, right? But just spending time on the floor will start to open up your hips, will start to, loosen up your spine and just help your posture and overall well-being and mobility, right? It's just that simple. Getting up and off the floor, how quickly can you do that? How easily can you do that? All these things are so important in maintaining longevity and mobility and all that stuff. Because even when I do tweak something or get injured, like I can still work around it. I still have a good understanding of it and my limitations around it and how to faster heal it, just because I have a better understanding of my body because I spend time with it on the floor. It's the best place to spend time with your body. I think setting aside at least 15 to 20 minutes every evening to just stretch and breathe will change your life. And that, in tandem with whether you weightlift, you kettlebell train, you bike, you run, whatever, it will help you do that for longer. I can promise you that. In my experience, I've noticed that like if I don't do that, if I don't keep up with my stretching, I'm more likely to get injured. Hands down. I don't care what any study says, what any other person says. In my experience, that is the case. And if you have any inkling that it might be in your experience as well, and you might resonate with that, then stretch. God damn it. It's good for you. It's really good for you. Stretch and breathe. It doesn't even have to be yoga or whatever. Just sit there, stretch and breathe. Get into uncomfortable positions and breathe until they become comfortable. That is the best thing. Yeah, spending time on the floor, all these things, guys, will up your longevity. Longevity, I think, is equated to mobility. Not a lot of people talk about that. It's all about nutrition and whatnot, but I think, again, it's how often you move. So there's even people who smoke cigarettes and stuff. They live for a long time because I think they just move more. So here's another one: mastering mental fortitude, discipline, and perseverance. So it's not a question, but we'll take it as a question. So how do you do that? How do you master mental fortitude, discipline, and perseverance? It's by, first off, having a routine. Having a routine that you lay out for yourself, that you stick to consistently. And if you peel back even that layer, what is that? That is your ability to do what you said you're going to do. That, my friends, that builds self-esteem, that builds confidence, and that lends itself to mental fortitude and discipline and perseverance, because and then when you have that down, of doing what you say you're going to do, having a routine, in that routine, you have certain things that you do that are challenging, that force you to struggle. Working out, cold showers, fasting, going on a diet, whatever it may be. You have a routine, and it is something that you have to exert mind over body to do, right? If you want to get into a cold tub, you're going to have to force yourself mentally to do that. Your body doesn't want to do that. If you want to do a hard workout, you're going to force yourself mentally to do that. Your body doesn't want to do that. Okay, so these are things that if you consistently do, like anything else that you consistently do as a human being, you get better at it, because we're creatures of habit. We form better patterns. We get used to things. We adapt. And that very adaptation of getting used to taking cold showers, of getting used to doing hard workouts, of getting used to fasting, of getting used to delaying gratification, makes those things easier, right? Which makes you tougher. And it takes more for you to feel discomfort. It takes more for you to feel pain. It takes more for you to not want to do something. It takes more for you to be unmotivated because you're so used to doing these things habitually. It's a practice. It's all a practice. Discipline is a practice. It doesn't just arrive. And even when you are disciplined, it's not like there's still not a struggle there certain times, right? I don't feel like working out every single day. I don't feel like doing this a lot, right? But I force myself to do it. And that's what it is, guys. And it spills into every area of your life. So that's why, a lot of guys will tell you, not a lot of guys, but a lot of these people that you watch, influencers and whatever, people will tell you, focus on your fitness first, and then everything else will follow. And it's very true because of this very fact. You're cultivating these qualities: mental fortitude, discipline, perseverance, not giving up, doing what you said you were going to do, not lying to yourself, building self-esteem, building confidence. And sure enough, it spills into every area of your life. So now when you are confronted with a challenge in your career, you persevere, you don't give up because you're used to struggle. You're used to overcoming struggle. When you see an opportunity, you go for it. You don't hesitate because you're used to getting in the cold shower. It's really logical if you really think about it, guys. It's just practice. These are all just practices that you can control and that you can instill on yourself in a controlled manner consistently to make it so that when uncontrolled things happen in life, you handle them better, right? It's common sense. So here's another one: mastering gut health and optimal nutrition. Not a question, but we'll take it as one again. So the number one thing to mastering gut health and optimal nutrition, guys, is fasting. And people don't talk about this aspect of fasting. This is separate from the science. I'm not talking science here. I'm talking spirituality, intuition. Fasting develops your intuition. I've been doing this for over a decade, guys. And again, this is not something that people really talk about because I don't think many people are that interested in it. Because again, in the West, it's not like I've said this time, but in the West, people are very empirically focused, right? And you'd think we learn our lesson by now. After proving the benefits of meditation, after proving the benefits of breath work, after proving the benefits of physical exercise, after proving the benefits of doing all of these things that the ancients already have told us are good for us, we still need to prove them in order to believe and practice them, or else it's just a bunch of woo-woo nonsense, right? But I'm telling you, there's a reason why fasting is embedded in pretty much every religion and, is a centerpiece to any spiritual practice, I think, because it is, what you can do as a human being to ultimately ascend spiritually, because, only a human being has the wherewithal and the ability to fast. Other animals don't have the conscious ability to restrict themselves from eating for the sake of restricting themselves from eating, right? It's only us. Sorry if you can hear my dog. He's agreeing with me. All right, so where was I? Bruce interrupted my train of thought. But fasting, so yeah, we are the only creatures on this planet who can actually exercise that conscious control, and that's why it allows you to ascend spiritually, because you're exercising this conscious mind over body control. And again, like anything else, the more you do it, the better you get at it, and the stronger your mind over body control gets, and that spills over again into every area of your life. So what is fasting ultimately? It's delayed gratification. Food is pleasure, it's gratification to the ultimate extent. It's what we need almost the most besides water. So when you restrict yourself from it consciously and you do it consistently, and again in a controlled and strategic way so that you're not starving yourself in the long run, that's not the goal. But again, you're practicing this in a strategic way. You got a good protocol. You stick to it consistently, it becomes easier and easier, and thus, you're able to delay gratification of anything. And thus, addiction itself has a weaker grip on you, right? And what does this even have to do with gut health and optimal nutrition, right? Well, when you fast, guys, you develop your intuition, you develop a very deep sense of your body and what food is doing to you. And it's very hard to describe. It's like, and this is why I began with describing it as a spiritual experience, because it's like trying to describe a psychedelic experience to you. And if you've had one, you understand how hard it is to put into words and describe it to other people. You've just got to go through it, but it's the same thing. When you fast consistently, you start to develop this relationship with your body, and you start to feel what certain foods are doing to you. When you eat certain foods, you start to feel worse when you enter your fasted state. You start to feel like the lack of nutrition, what your body needs and what your body is really craving, the more consistently you do it. And when you feed yourself properly, you feel better. You feel the nutrition, you feel the nourishment, you actually feel it. And we're disconnected from this feeling, guys, and we've numbed this feeling because we don't fast anymore. Fasting was not a thing that we had to, that we chose to do for a long time. It's something that we had to do for most of our existence. And now we are privileged with never having to do it, but it's killing us. Convenience is killing us because now we're numbing this feeling, this intuition that we all have. And thus it is hard for us to distinguish what is good, what is bad. We're numb to all of it. And, so you don't really have that good relationship with your body. And thus, you're desensitized to all of the bad stuff that you might be consuming, because until you do stuff like this and then you start eating well and then you have food that you're not supposed to eat, you start to feel the repercussions of that extra hard. You're like, oh, and that extra pain deters you from wanting it again and kills the craving completely in a natural way, not in a way where you have to force yourself to do it. But when you fast consistently, you become, more in touch with your body, more in tune, you develop a deeper sense of what is good for you specifically, because there's not a consensus out, right, on what is the best way to eat. We all have our opinions, and there are experts on all sides, right? But there's clearly a debate, and there's clearly a lot of people who feel great doing one thing. There's clearly a lot of people who feel great doing another thing. But I think one nutritional truth is fasting, and it's also a tool to discover what is good for you, what feels good for you. And yeah, there's a whole way of going, about that, and, testing different things out and finding out what foods are good for you, because again, everyone's different. I think generally eating foods from nature is good, but, some people might be more sensitive than others to plants. Some people might be more sensitive to others to, nuts and seeds or berries or maybe even meat. I haven't seen it, but maybe, so we're all different. You got to try these things out, but fasting is what will start to reignite the feeling, the intuition of what this is versus the numbing, right? That feeling of hunger you get when you don't eat for 6 hours, that's just the beginning. That's just the beginning. That's not even hunger, right? So yeah, it's interesting, guys. It's a lot to go down, but let's get into another question. The fourth question, I get nauseous during morning fasted workouts. How do I avoid this? So I think there is an adaptation period, right? Like give it about 14 days of working out fasted, not eating in the morning, which I don't really think is fasting. Again, a real fast, guys, like 24 plus hours. That's a real fast. This is all just time restricted eating. If you're eating in a shorter time window in the day, but you're still eating, that's I wouldn't even call that intermittent fasting. I would call that time restricted eating. Intermittent fasting is fasting, so I'd say 24 hours plus a full day plus intermittently, right? So time restricted eating daily is a great thing. I do that too, but I'm just telling you my little nuance there. But so if you get nauseous during it, back to what I was saying previously, what are you eating? That still matters. You can fast all you want, but if you're not eating the proper nutrition, you're going to start to feel even worse than you were when you weren't fasting, because again, you're forcing yourself to feel that, right? So it depends on what you're eating. That could have a huge thing to do with it. How late you're eating, like how close you are eating to your bedtime. I recommend you eat, you end your eating at least 2 hours before you go to bed. That's my recommendation. And then obviously eating good food, that's a whole nother thing to discuss. But then also the adaptation of being able to work out while you're fasted. It takes a little getting used to, because maybe you're just not used to it. So you just got to let your body adapt. So stick with it. You'll be fine. But again, make sure you're fueling yourself properly when you do eat. What else? Let's see. I always do. So let's talk about this. Is your carbohydrate intake zero all year round? Any cheat days? So yeah, I do have an open day of eating, I'll say, right? And I wouldn't say, so I've been doing this kind of carnivore diet since November, and I've done it before, but this is actually the longest I've done it. It's been about 6 months. And I do allow one day on a Saturday where I kind of eat whatever I want. And some Saturdays that might be a little worse than others. But typically I try to just keep it like how I was eating before, which is just basically a day of eating like, I was just talking to one of my new clients. Like, I don't even know what to call this style of eating. It's not paleo, it's not animal based, because I don't demonize vegetables. I don't demonize anything from nature, and I don't demonize dairy either. So that's why it's not paleo. But anyway, so it's pretty much just a real whole food diet, right? Like just meat, eggs, fish, vegetables, fruits, nuts, seeds, legumes, anything from nature, honey, maple syrup. Did I say fruit? Pretty sure I said fruit. Definitely fruit. So just anything, right, from nature. Trying to avoid shitty stuff, trying to cook at home on those days. So I will allow for those days, yeah, because I think, guys, in my personal opinion, I don't want to ever be too narrowed down. I don't also think that makes sense, right? I don't think we would have evolutionarily only just eaten meat. I don't think that's realistic, right? We definitely, I think, like the majority of our nutrition had to have come from meat. Like, let's just be honest, guys. Like you can live off certain things for only so long, but like I think what we did was we lived off certain things that we could find, maybe berries, maybe nuts, maybe seeds, anything we could fucking eat. I think we ate, but the real like meal, like the real thing that was gonna actually carry us over for like a day or two, or at least hours and hours, was gonna be a meat, like a big meal of meat. Right? Let's be honest. You're not gonna be able to fast, 36 hours without feeling like shit if you're just eating nuts and berries, If you get a big meal, though, a big meaty meal, that's going to carry you over for a little while. You need the fat, our brain, we need fat in our brain. So yeah, I think the majority of our nutrition and like the focus of, our life was getting meat, I think, as human beings. But I don't think it's realistic to think that we would have only ate meat. Come on. If we found honey, you don't think we would have gone crazy? Absolutely. We would have demolished that honey. But are we eating honey every day? That's the real question, So, and I was eating honey every day and I didn't find a problem with it. Again, my own personal experience, my own personal gut microbiome, skin issues, that's why I chose to go carnivore. I talked about it on my last podcast. If you guys want to know why, go listen to the last podcast. I won't go too far into that, but oh wow, we're running out of time, I think. But yeah, so that's usually what I'll do on my off day. And I don't really look at it as like carbing up or being no carb or something like that. You know what I found, guys, in my personal experience, again, I'm not going to argue any science or anything on this because I think there's actually plenty of science to prove that carbohydrates aren't necessary, but that's basically what I found is I don't think carbohydrates are necessary. I haven't found a difference in my performance, in my workouts, in my energy. You know, even on those days where I do have carbs, it's not like I feel like complete shit or whatever. I feel fine. I feel fine on those days, you know? I might be a little bit more bloated for sure, because that's a key difference, guys, with carnivore, with pure carnivore. That's why it's so hard for me to get away from it. You know, like it's not like I really have set out to do it this long. It's just like I'm so optimized. I feel so clear headed, and most importantly, like I eat like just before this, I had over a pound of meat and 7 eggs, and I'm gonna eat more today. But after that meal, I feel very full. I feel very satiated. But I look down, and there's absolutely no distension of the gut, no bloating whatsoever. But even on those like Saturdays, for example, where I might have the same thing, but I might add some honey, I might add some avocado, might add some apples, some fruit. I'll get distension of the gut, you know? Maybe I'm not saying I add all those things, right? But if I even add a little bit of fiber, fruit, carbs in any way, I will notice a difference in that sense, which is interesting, you know? So that's what keeps me on it. But I do think that there is, I don't want to be completely intolerant of those things, you know, because I know that if I were to go strict carnivore, if I've been strict carnivore for these last 6 months and never had any open eating days or whatever, then I'd probably get pretty fucked up by eating an apple or something. You know what I mean? Like, because I think you do want to maintain a little capability to process these things, and you know, little dose of poison here and there. So that's what I do, you know. So I do allow for that, and I find it beneficial. I find it pretty beneficial because it makes me feel like I'm not so tunneled in, you know. Because like I said, guys, if I do want to have a pizza, go grab some drinks with some friends or something like that, I'm not a caveman. I do those things, all right? And it still allows me that freedom to do those things. It doesn't affect me super hard, doesn't jack me up or anything. And then I just get right back on it, you know? And like I'll usually on a Sunday I'll fast anywhere from 20 to 36 hours, just depending on how I feel, how lean I feel, how hungry I feel. All these I factor in again, intuition. And I'll fast the next day and I kind of kick myself right back into ketosis, get right back on carnivore, and we're ready to hit the week strong, you know? And what I found, guys, a really interesting thing is on these cheat days, on these open eating days, you know, I'm telling you guys, I'm a fiend. You know, I'm a glutton. You might not believe it, but I've had problems with sugar and binge eating and stuff like that. Never in my life have I been to the point where I am now, where thank God, you know, like I could have access to a bunch of cookies and ice cream and whatever you can give me that is delicious today. And I naturally limit myself, which I never thought was possible. Maybe if you're watching this and you have like a sugar or binge eating problem, maybe you can relate because you'll totally understand what I'm talking about. But like I could never just have one cookie, for example. I have to have the whole fucking thing. I have to basically eat enough until I'm sick, which is a weird that's what I realized was the problem. Was like I can't regulate it. It's like I literally can't stop until I feel this sickness. This was a long time ago and I've dealt with this, but I'm telling you guys, with carnivore, it's like I used to for the last like 3 to 5 years, I've just kind of avoided this stuff, right? But now I can have it and I'll just stop very early. And I have no inkling to like binge, to eat sugar. It's really not like there's no draw to it anymore. Like I'll have it to have it sometimes, but even that's just like, all right, I'm good, you know? So that I think is the coolest thing, you know? Because again, if you struggle with that, it's quite the relief, you know, because you want to be able to enjoy life, but it's not enjoying life if you can't, if it's like some, you know, if you have a problem with it, right? Like if you have a problem with sugar or binge eating, then you binging on 12 cookies on the weekend is not enjoying your life. That's a problem and you got to fix that. But if you're, you know, you see ice cream, you're offered ice cream, you're like, yeah, have some ice cream, you have a few bites, it was delicious, and your stomach's just telling you no, and you're able to just put it down. Like that's liberating right there. And that's exactly what should happen, right? And then throughout the week, I have no cravings. And I'll tell you this, guys. At this point, there's like, even this Saturday's coming, I might not even have an open eating day. Like, there's some Saturdays that come where I'm just like, I don't feel like it. You know, it's just not worth it. I'd rather just have a steak. I just feel amazing. And it shifts everything, because you realize, guys, it's, again, a pretty psychedelic thing. You realize how much of our pleasure comes from food, and how often we're kind of just like going to food for pleasure and to numb ourselves throughout the day. And when you're on carnivore, there's no snacking and stuff, you know? So your pleasure no longer just comes from food, and you start to do other things. Like, you start to read more, you start to walk more, you start to just do other things besides eat. And that is just amazing, you know? So, because again, it comes back to this like intuitive eating. And what was I gonna say? Not intuitive eating, but like not having cravings, and I guess just, yeah, I don't know what I was gonna say there. I kind of had a connection to draw, but I sort of lost it. It was like that feeling of being free throughout the week, of not having to think about what I'm going to eat. And yeah, I don't know. I'm being random right now. I kind of lost my train of thought. But yeah, guys, that's kind of how I've been doing. I found it to be really sustainable. And at the same time, you know, like, I think there's a thought that you need to like cut everything out cold turkey to ever see relief from things, for example, like whether it be processed foods or whatever. But, you know, I think if you're able to, you know, establish a good rhythm for yourself, and because of why I like carnivore is because it starts to reprogram you naturally, because you're not restricting yourself, right? You're controlling what you're eating, but you're not controlling anything else. You're not controlling how much you're eating. You're eating until you feel hungry. And then as you do that for a longer amount of time, you know, you start to develop this kind of like relationship with food where, you know, with meat per se, where you just eat it for fuel. And of course, it's pleasurable when you do eat it. And I love to cook, and I love the whole process of it. But it's so much less of a, you know, it's so much less of a, I guess like a pleasurable thing, which I don't mean to say. Like, it's not like, oh no, I don't like to eat, but it's like, I don't get all of my pleasure from food. You know, not like all my pleasure always came from food, but more of your pleasure comes from other things in life, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Is because you're not numbing yourself with food constantly, you're feeling more of life. Like, you're feeling more of like the natural pleasures of life. That's at least what I've noticed. So anyways, that's it for today, guys. I think we've had a good conversation. I appreciate your feedback. It's been great talking to you. And, you know, we'll just keep it rolling. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.